you know, we still need the stories, whether we read modern novels or not. It's like, you know, we need that connection, whether it's with our elders or with our kids. You know, we pass these stories on as something precious. For me personally, it's probably just the unknown, you know. I've always been drawn more to the unknown and whatever the beyond of normal life. So I would actually go out and look for these. You know, we would go to haunted houses. We would go to haunted areas of the cities. See what was going on, you know? Yeah, now, whatever that comes from, I don't know. But it kept life interesting.
It was almost like an escape.
Definitely an escape. Family life was not a happy life. So that was an escape, definitely.
Hey, welcome to the Floaties for Krakens Podcast. I am your host, Camille Maria Costa, and it is a brilliant day to be monstrous. Hello, lovely little monsters. Welcome back to Season 3, Episode 18 of the Floaties for Krakens Podcast, a show all about the monsters in our head, but reclaiming them instead. Have you checked out our Halfway to Hollow April Monster Movie-thon calendar just yet? Well, we've collected some of your favorite films, and some of mine, of course, to make a super special April celebration filled with all of our favorite things. Monsters. Head on over to our Instagram, please, to follow along with us and watch something ooky spooky dooky every day, all monster-filled. Today, I think, when this episode is releasing, you all should be watching Army of Darkness. Come on, man. I mean, you, a Dr. Pepper, a bag of chips, Bruce Campbell. What a great freaking Saturday. I am so freaking excited to introduce our guest of honor today, Cuttlefish. Literally such a freaking fangirl over this lovely human and her sister and all of the phenomenal work that they both do in the world of Latine horror. Let's give it up for the OG of the OGs, Cristina Lumague. Cristina is a freelance podcast editor / producer and an indie podcaster. She found her love for podcasts in 2020. Since then, she has worked with huge, small, nonprofit, history, and paranormal-based podcasts. All sorts of podcasts, especially those focusing on diverse voices, but especially Latine voices. And if you've never heard of Cristina's amazing show, Espooky Tales, which I doubt it, I'm sure every single one of you has, it is a podcast full of Latin American folklore, myths, legends, haunted places, and espooky cuentos del rancho. Hear the stories you grew up with like La Llorona, as well as true stories from listeners and guests. Join twins Cristina and Carmen every Friday and hear these tales, plus laugh a little. Cristina freaking rocks. Her and her sister Carmen were literally one of the very first Latine spooky podcasters I ever saw and listened to, and I was unbelievably inspired by their passion for sharing the beautiful terror within Latine culture. They have broken so many boundaries for creators like myself, and I can't thank them enough. Thank you, Cristina, for being such a freaking badass and pioneering so many paths for lovers of the Latine other. Thank you for speaking up for diversity and Latine culture, and for creating such a welcoming space for so many of us. Your shows freaking rock, and I hope you know you inspire so many people every single day. For this specific episode, we will be highlighting the beauty of immigrants and asylum seekers across the globe, and more specifically, in the United States. They are important, they are deserving of staying here and seeking refuge here, and their stories matter. Cristina chose an organization to recognize for today's show, Al Otro Lado. Al Otro Lado provides holistic legal and humanitarian support to refugees, deportees, and other migrants in the U.S. and Tijuana through a multidisciplinary, client-centered, harm reduction-based practice. They provide direct, free legal services on both sides of the U.S.-Mexico border and beyond. They also engage in zealous individual representation, medical legal partnerships, and impact litigation to protect the rights of immigrants and asylum seekers. You can find out more about them in the show links below. Just a quick content warning for this episode. In the following interview, there will be mentions and discussions of gore, death, child death, abuse, sexual abuse, and racism in this episode. Do whatever you need to do to feel safe. Okie dokie, cuttlefish. It's time. Ladies and cuttlefish, let me introduce to you Spooky Podcasts for Siguanabas. Hi,
Yay.
Cristina.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing good. Living the dream.
Right. Surviving.
It's just, I never know anymore how to respond to that question.
Right.
You know, like, hello, how you doing? I don't know.
Do you want the short answer or the long one?
Right. How much time do you actually have? And do you really want to know?
Right.
God. Oh my gosh. Are you in California right now?
No. Oh my God. I was going to say yes. No, I wish. No, I'm back in Washington. I live in Washington and then Carmen's in California. But I
Oh
am
my
from California.
gosh. That's awesome. What's it like in Washington right now?
Cold and wet.
Of
Yeah,
course
we
it
were
is.
just in Mexico. Like we got back. I got back Tuesday. Oh, we got back the same day. Tuesday night, we all got back, and it was so hot over there. So I'm like
Oh,
suffering
such a
here now.
dream.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds so nice. It was really, it's been like windy and wet here in Kentucky too. It's not
I was gonna
ideal.
ask again where you were because I forgot. But Kentucky, I don't think
Yeah.
I've ever been to that part of the states. No.
You know, I mean, well, Bowling Green's really like the only place I really know since I've lived here for a minute. But you know, there's some cool parts. There's Lexington, and there's a lot to do there. Owensboro, there's like, you know, really beautiful green pastures and things
Okay.
like that.
Okay.
But
Why did I think it was? It's not near Oklahoma, right? Like.
you're asking to me the map of the United States is a big. I I don't
Yeah, I can
know.
point to the West Coast states and then
Correct.
Texas and then like New York,
Correct.
and that's probably and Florida. Who doesn't know Florida, you know?
Right. Exactly.
Louisiana's the boot, right? So
Yes, it is.
that's about it. That's all. And everything in the middle, I'm like, I don't know.
It's kind of just a big state.
Yeah, yeah.
I just don't know. I don't know. Well, okay,
Mm,
so like how about you tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do, for those that may not know. Which I
yes.
doubt. People are living under a rock if they don't know who you all are.
Right? No.
No, it's true.
You know
It's
what? You're
true.
right. You're right. You should know me by now.
Period.
No, I'm Cristina, one half of Espooky Tales. I co-host it with my twin Carmen now, and it used to be with my friend or our friend MJ, but she stepped down, and Carmen so graciously stepped up. And
So
Spooky
cute.
Tales is a podcast about haunted places, myths, legends, and we added on true crime. So one of us does the paranormal portion, and then the other one the true crime portion. But it's all about Latin America. And then we also have a history podcast together called Historias Unknown, which is also about Latin America. That's like all we do. It's like if it's related to Latin America, we're gonna talk about it.
Of course, as you should, and it is
Right?
so needed. Like I can't express that enough. Like first of all, Spooky Tales is how I found you both years ago. And it's iconic, it's everything. Like it's just so it just made me so happy to see like Latine representation, especially like in the spooky world. Like I just think that is so important and
Yes.
so
Oh, I have
fun.
to. I have to tell you. So I was looking for more podcasts because I had found and that's why we drink, but I was like, I want like
Yeah.
where's like the Latino version of this? Because and I also listen to like things in Spanish, like leyendas legendarias. They've been going on for
Oh
such a
my
long time,
god.
and I was all
Yes.
caught up with both of those. And I was like, where are like the podcasts like this, but like here? And I found Aiden Susto, and he had been on a break already when I found him, and I listened to every episode. Then I found Monstras,
Oh
both of
my
them. And then
god.
after them two, those two, I was like, where there's no more podcasts. That's when I was like, I need to start my own, I guess, about this same kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
that's how Espooky Tales was born. And then I begged Carmen to do it, but she was so busy with her real job, with her real adult job. And that's when MJ was like, I'll do it. So yeah.
Oh my god. That's incredible.
Yeah, the
And
only
that's
reason it
important.
exists is because I finished Susto and there was no more episodes.
So he is to pay for
I
he's
tell
the
him all the time.
reason.
He was literally him and Monstras were my inspiration.
God, they're all so great too. Orquídea is so
I
incredible.
love
They're
I love listening. I miss their podcast so
I
much.
know. I
Yeah.
know. I feel like I mean, and again, like that's the complex part I think about these podcast platforms is people have to also have another job or like, find a sustainable
Yeah.
platform to live and that, it's life. It's
It's
what we
hard to
got to
keep
do.
up with. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's really hard. But I mean, the fact that you all are doing it is so commendable. And I love that you personally found a way. You were like, no, I need to hear more stories like mine. Like I want to see that
Yes.
represented. Well then, okay, so how did spookiness kind of come into play for you? Like when do you remember first really loving that world?
Oh my gosh. I couldn't even like from the womb, honestly.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
all our life. I don't have any like one first memory where I'm like, oh, this is when they first told us this story because it's always been around. Like growing up in a Mexican household, literally
Yeah.
like the parties were over, and as a kid, you're playing with all your cousins, but you can kind of overhear the adults start telling stories, and like you're not
Mhm.
part of it at first because you're a kid, so you're like, oh, go play.
Right.
But then you have your older cousins who start telling you about La Llorona. When we first visited Mexico, my
Oh,
cousin, he was like, oh, La Llorona used to have three kids, and the story's always been two, but he told us three because it was me, my twin, and my brother, and he wanted
of
to make it
course.
sound like the three of us. And then he was like,
Of
she's
course.
gonna get you if you don't listen to her. And then the way that house is built in Mexico, there's like the room we all sleep in when we visit. There's
Yeah.
stairs right above, like that go upstairs, and then there's like a window right here, and then like the living room's over here, but it's closed off, and there's just that window. And he passed by. He slept upstairs, and he like in the middle of the night he came down for the bathroom, and he passed by and he was like, ooh, and
Oh.
we freaked the fuck out, of course. Like,
Yes. How dare he?
yeah. But no, I mean, that, but then you add in like goosebumps. I don't know. The minute I could read,
Gosh.
like chapter books, and reading was like, me and Carmen were both obsessed. We used to, cover each other in like a blanket, and then we had a little flashlight, and we'd
Oh
like
my
get in trouble because it
god.
would be midnight, and we'd be reading, taking turns reading to each other. Then you'd be like, why are
That's
you
so
still reading? Go to sleep.
beautiful.
We were like reading nerds. And so Goosebumps, before Goosebumps, I don't know if you ever saw these books, but there was these books called A to C Mysteries, and it was a group of like five friends. They were elementary school kids, and they used to solve
Yes.
like Scooby-Doo. They would solve mysteries
This
together.
you are opening some part of my brain where I see the cover in my mind. I have
Yes.
seen this before. Oh my
Yes.
gosh.
So we read those before Goosebumps because they're like, I would say like first to second grade. You know those barely chapter books? It
Yeah,
was like
yeah,
that level. Then there's like the scary stories to tell in the dark, like all those we would
yeah.
read. So yeah, it was like meant to be
Oh
from the
my
womb,
god.
honestly.
Well, I mean, it makes sense that, being like, raised Mexican, right? Like that you are like initiated into the culture, I feel like, by getting freaking terrified
Yeah.
by somebody in your
Yeah.
family, at all ages, right? Just
Yeah.
absolutely scaring the crap out of you. And it's iconic that it was La Llorona in Mexico specifically that happened.
Yeah,
Um,
that was like the first story that he like literally told us to scare us. Because my parents never were the ones to be like, "Oh, Lara, Llorona's gonna get you," but my cousin, he was the one to knew it.
that's so freaking just iconic. That's like it makes sense, right? Like I guess we just all have to grow up that way,
Right?
in some form or another. But Goosebumps, oh my, and Scary Stories Till in the Dark, like, oh man, what freaking terrifying. But well, Scary Stories Tell You in the Dark is those illustrations are
They were
so
so scary.
so
Yeah.
scary,
Oh, another
haunting.
one that I'm like, why did I read this at this age? But do you remember the woman with the green ribbon? I don't remember the name of the book, but it was like
When
she
her
was
head falls off.
yes. Yeah. And I'm like, why was I reading that? I was like 6. What's And I wasn't scared. I loved it.
It was wonderful.
It was a great experience.
I mean, it's wild. Like, it's so fascinating, and I love that because I'm just like you guys. I think it just made sense. It felt comfortable to read those stories and to read those books. It was exciting. I think and
Yes.
feel scared. You know?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so awesome. And, I feel like, from personal experience, I feel like Latine culture and like spookiness, like we're hand in hand. Like, I feel like that's just something that works together very nicely. And I
Oh
don't know
yeah.
if you feel, because I know, right, like you said, you want to make sure with your shows, with your podcasts and things, and your book club too, right? Like you
Oh
want to make
yeah.
sure you integrate both of those worlds together. And why do you think they mesh so brilliantly together?
Oh my God. I don't honestly for so many reasons. One, I think we've all been like groomed to be the perfect horror fans, honestly. But I think a lot of it because I think most it's mostly still like majority Catholic, the way everyone grew up, right? And like, come
Yes.
on. That's like the original horror book. Um
Horrifying.
yes, like truly horrible. And then they're like scaring you into obedience. Like, come on.
That's so true. Like
Yeah.
it's haunting. And like the some of the statues that you'll see like in some of these churches,
Horrifying.
right?
Yeah.
Very
Like,
scary.
okay,
Like,
there's in Guadalajara, because that's my grandma lives right side of Guadalajara, and that's like the
oh,
place
okay.
we go whenever they're like, we need to show you the city. We go into Guadalajara, and the big cathedral that's there.
Oh,
It's a beautiful cathedral. I love it. I don't go to like I'm not religious anymore, but I will go look at a nice church always. So
it's
we were just there.
beautiful.
But even as kids, they took us to go see this church, and in that cathedral in Guadalajara, there's that little girl named Santa Inocencia, and it's like one of those religious stories that they tell you where it's a horrible story. She was like
Yeah.
this little girl and she wanted to do her primera comunión. And then, like, I don't know what religion everyone else was that nobody would let her, Protestant maybe, because she
Mhm.
was Italian. So it might have been during that like Protestant Catholic like war in
Yeah.
Europe, and because she's Italian. And so, and how the hell she ended up in Mexico, I forget. But
Yeah. It's she
I
was she
couldn't
was
tell you.
there.
Yeah, but she's there now. And so she wanted to do her first communion and she did it in secret. And then her dad, in anger, kills this girl.
Of
I
course.
think she was nearly decapitated at some point, like, is part of the story. And so now I think she was like gifted by Italy to the that church in Guadalajara or something. I don't know. But she's there and she's like on full display. You can go, people will go and put little letters like asking her for miracles, because that's another thing that specifically I think it's like a Mexican Catholic thing is, but like if a little child dies, we're going to turn that little kid into a saint and ask them
Oh,
for favors. And that's what she is now. And we went to go see her as kids and they told us the story.
that is wild. You're so right though. Absolutely. I that this is my first time hearing about this specific instance and I am so fascinated. That
And
is wild.
she's not the only child like this in Mexico. There's
Oh
another
my
story. I don't forget where this one is. It's somewhere in Zacatecas, I think. But
yeah.
there's these two little boys, and there's a statue. So their actual body's not in this church, like
Okay.
Santa Inocencia. But there's a statue of them outside of this church, and like one boy somehow accidentally like kills the brother. Like it's an accident. They were fighting, and like you go and you see them, and you're supposed to learn this lesson of like, yes, your siblings, you can't fight like this because look what happens. Like you accidentally kill your brother and now you're like doomed to this life of like missing your brother because you killed him because you were mad.
Oh
Like
my god. You make a good point too in that a lot of it is also, like, surrounded with, like, some sort of moral code.
oh
Like,
yeah.
they scare us into learning, like, some sort of lesson or we're supposed to learn some sort of lesson when in reality, we're just freaking terrified the entire time. It's
Yeah.
like, "Okay, thank you."
Yes, yes. But
But you're right.
even without that moral story, like we, you go to church, or we wouldn't go every Sunday, but sometimes. But especially the holidays, the big holidays is when we would go. And so like Easter, Jesus is literally a zombie at that point. Like he comes back to
Right?
life. I was just
Yeah.
like, wow, he's a zombie. Like this is so cool. And so obviously we're all gonna be into horror. Like
Yes, absolutely. There's monsters like all over the Bible. Like there's like these really intense like, moments of like blood and gore and like
demons and
descriptions of
angels
it.
fighting.
Demons
Like,
and
come
angels.
on.
Yeah, like it's quite haunting. You know what I mean? Like it really is. I think that's so awesome. I relate to you so much on that front. and I'm not religious anymore, but yeah, I remember very vividly. Like there was this specific pew that my mom always liked to sit me and my brother at, and right on top of us was this like Jesus on the cross, but he was so, I don't know who made him, but he was so frightening, Christina, like so scary, and he had the blood, right,
I
like
was gonna
coming out of
say,
his
is it the
eye.
very detailed ones with the blood coming down? Like, yeah,
And just staring, right, like
yes,
right on you, and I'm like,
yeah,
this, I mean,
watching you.
watching every little thing that you do.
Yep, yep.
And I feel like too, I don't know if you can relate, but we're taught at a very young age, like in Catholicism, like, you did something wrong right before you were even born. Like you
Oh
are
yeah,
born guilty,
yeah,
basically. And I feel like that very much added to this idea of horror and fear and terror, unfortunately.
yeah,
Right? Like in a lot of instances of going to church. Um it was like it was a scary experience to say the least, I
yeah.
guess, to say the least. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, the monster that we are going to talk about today, I'm so excited. I am thrilled. One of my favorite, explorations of monstrosity is specifically feminine monsters.
I love
Um
them.
oh, like they're so fruitful. There is so much we can talk about. I'm so excited. But before we really dive into who this person is specifically, can you tell us like a little bit like what is a legend? Because I feel like legend telling is also very common in Mexican culture and Latine culture in general. But what would
Oh
you
yeah,
say?
the art of like oral storytelling. It's like even at its most basic level, a family party, you're sitting there and you're passing on your stories from like generation to generation. So even at
Yes.
that, but like it's such an old art, and like to me a legend, it's a story that you pass on, and there may or may not be like this hard historical evidence for it, and yet we hear it and we pass it on,
Yeah.
like that's what
Yeah.
it, and it doesn't have to be scary, it can be like anything. Like there's religious ones, which are
Yeah.
scary actually, but there's religious ones, there's the
Yes.
your horror ones, and there's like even from like wars, like oh so and so
Mhm.
general passed through here, and every year we have the ceremony or celebration to commemorate that day. Those are all that's all legends. Yeah,
Yes. Yes. And it tells so much about society at that time. Like you said, cultures at that time. Like there's so much you can learn about a people, I think, through legends. And like you said, right at the beginning, how you said, like, your cousin said La Llorona had 3 children and all of this stuff. And the fun thing about legend telling is it changes depending on who's telling the story, right?
yeah,
Like they add their own little twist to them or like localizations of like, oh yeah, this legend happened right outside our house or right down on the
yes.
rio that's like right there or
Yeah,
whatever.
like who doesn't have a tío who heard La Llorona, like, you know?
Oh yeah, who knows her, who's friends with her, who got right, like
Sees
it,
her every once in a while, like she's
yeah,
around their house, like she's there. Yeah.
she lives right out back, like
Around the corner, yes.
yeah.
Behind el cerro, yes.
Yeah, she's part of the family, like she's in the family photos at this point, like that's how ingrained she is,
Yes.
definitely. Yeah. Okay, well, speaking of La Llorona too, please, Christina, tell us who La Siguanaba is.
Yes. So La Siguanaba is often like, oh, it's another version of La Llorona.
Mhm.
But like I have to tell everyone and like literally argue, no, she's not. She's her own story. And if
Yeah,
you're gonna say she's like La Llorona, oops. If you're gonna say she's like La Llorona, then you might as well say every woman ghost, every woman in white is La Llorona. And yeah, there's this trope. And the trope is there, and they're all part of this trope, but they're all
yeah,
their own stories. And let's give them their time and their credit and their praises.
yeah. Oh, literally, literally, they stand on their own. Like they're
Yeah.
so iconic that they stand on their own for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so La Ciguanaba is a Central American legend, mostly heard in El Salvador. And even within Central America, each one has their own version of her. But like the most basic one is that she was once a woman named Sibawet, which is a Nahuatl word meaning beautiful woman. And so Sibawet used to use her charms and her beauty, to get to where she is in life, because that's what a woman does. So
Right. Yeah.
only,
Of
yeah.
course.
If she's ugly, she's screwed. But she
Yeah.
was beautiful, so she was good.
She was set.
Yeah, she's set for life. And because she was so beautiful, she married Yesun, who was like the prince, the son of the king. And for this is all taking place in like pre-colonial times. So there's wars going on, and Yesun is often off at war, leaving Sibawet behind. And Sibawet, during this time, she's alone. She's lonely, so she has a few affairs. Like, not a
Yeah.
big deal.
Totally.
I am a Siguanaba apologist, I will say. So the story's a
She
little
wrote.
biased.
Oh no. Same.
She could do
Do
no
it.
wrong to me. So yeah, she has a few affairs. Like, who
Yeah.
cares?
Who cares? Yeah.
And from these few affairs, she births a child known as El Cipitillo, who is his own
Mm.
legend as well.
Yeah.
And El Cipitillo is not Yesun's son, apparently, but like no one knows this at first. And so one version of the story is that Yesun's dad is someone called El Lucero de la Mañana. I think that version, so
Mm.
like Lucifer Morningstar. But I think
Yeah.
that version of the story came on after the Spanish, because it
That
wasn't
makes
that.
sense.
So there's another version where he's the son of Tlaloc, which is like the rain or water god.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so that's like the version that I'm more familiar with. But
Yeah.
there's those two versions do exist. And so Tlaloc discovered that Sibewet would leave El Cipitillo alone and mistreat him and like not feed him, to go and meet other men. So at that point, I'm like, all right, I'm not on her side anymore. That's a little wrong.
Right. That's kind of messed up.
At least find a babysitter before you do that. Then it'll all be
Come on.
good, you know? Come
Yeah.
on. Yeah.
Don't take it out on him.
So, because of the way Cipitillo, the son, is being treated, grandson of Tlaloc,
Yeah.
he then curses her, so that now she's not a beautiful woman anymore. She's not Siwawet, she's now Siguanaba. And at first, when she appears to men, she does seem like her old, beautiful self, but then the closer they get, she has this horrible horse face, and she's also dead at this point. He kills her and curses her, and so she's cursed to eternity to roam the countryside looking for men that are mujeriego. So they're like they sleep
Yeah.
around, these men, right? That's what they're known
Bad
for.
men.
And so that's who she goes after, or people that are out drinking too late, so like drunks.
Mm.
And so men run into her, and sometimes she's just like sitting on a rock brushing her hair naked, and just you just see her long hair and she's brushing it.
That's so
And
incredible.
to be fair, they approach her, she's not approaching them in a lot of these stories, right? So
Yeah.
but they
Yeah.
approach they approach her brushing her hair, and then she turns and she's this horrible horse-faced woman, and they get scared to death, or they get so scared that they turn crazy. In other stories, she lures men like with her beauty to
Right.
follow her off a cliff, and then they die. um Most of the stories are only like to men, but there are stories of her luring children away, more boys than girls. um
Interesting.
so this is where I'm like, okay, I'm not on your side anymore. That's a little wrong.
Yeah. There.
um
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And there is another version of the story where Yesun is gone at war, and when he comes back, they throw him a party. And Sibawet doesn't want to be like the queen anymore. She wants to be queen by herself. She doesn't want Yesun around. And so she plans to kill him, and she gets like a potion from a bruja, and then it's
Mm.
supposed to kill him, but instead he turns into like this horrible monster that starts attacking everyone, and then the guards kill him. And in revenge, Tlaloc curses her and Cipitillo. He didn't do anything, but he gets cursed
But
too.
wrap them into
Yeah,
that. Sure. Yeah.
collateral.
Generational trauma. Thank you.
Yes, yes. So there's two ways to how she gets cursed, but at the end she ends up cursed, and Cipitillo, the son, ends up cursed with her. And then the other, so part of the curse is that she roams the countryside looking for men to scare to death, or
Yeah.
um, turn them crazy. The other part of the curse is that Cipitillo is also supposed to live forever, and his feet were turned backwards, and he's this little trickster. He also like loves to bother girls and stalk them, and a little
Mm.
mean. But part of their curse is that Siwewet or Siguanaba is looking for Cipitio, but she's never gonna be able to find him. They can't cross paths
Oh
in
my
the eternity
god.
either. So they both live forever, but Cipitio's having fun. He's having a good time. He's eating
Sure.
ashes. He loves to eat ashes from, because back in the day in El Salvador and even Mexico, but
Yeah.
technology has changed this. But you used to have like a clay, not a clay, but like an oven that you had
Yeah.
to put like a log of wood in there to get
Yeah.
the oven going. And so those ashes from that leña, the wood, is what Cipitillo loves to eat. And so if you like go like my grandma, apparently my dad used to say that he would walk into the kitchen and it'd be like super messy, and she'd be like, oh no, El Cipitillo was here because there was ashes everywhere when they weren't there before. So that's what he does. He eats ashes, bananas, messes with girls, and then in the meantime his mama is walking around scaring men and
Yeah. Turning them
not being able
crazy.
to find him in the afterlife. So
Oh my gosh. What
so
a
yeah,
layered freaking
there's so much
character.
to it. Yeah.
It's so much to it, and I'm gonna pick your brain about every aspect of it because I am so curious. That is okay. Oh my god. Okay, well, first of all, before we really get into like the layers of everything, you said you had mentioned that she was cursed to have this like horse face in many iterations, right? Um, what does she look like? Like if she was going to approach us like in the middle of the night, what would she look like? I know you said sometimes she's not wearing any clothes, right? Super
Yes.
long
So
hair.
if she is clothed and you see her walking and not sitting on her lawn with her long hair, brushing her hair. So she'll have a white dress, long black hair, and like nobody really gets a good look. Some people say it looks like it's there, like she takes the form of a loved one, so like a mom. Once they
Oh
get
my
closer to her and she's lured them away and turns around and she has that like horrible horse face, then it's like, oh my god, it's not my mom. So some people say that's how they see La Ciguanaba, as either a girlfriend, wife, or mom. And then other people only ever see her from far away. So she'll have a long dress, a long white dress, long black hair, and then when you get closer, horse face. Also, I forgot to mention, but some this is the most ridiculous part of the story.
yeah.
So she starts to have very long breasts,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
because she's a
Yeah.
mom. I don't know. I guess they
Yeah.
just, but they're like extra long. And so if she's chasing you, you can hear her breasts
Like, oh
clapping
my
together.
god.
So if you hear that and you turn around, it's her chasing you, and you got to
She's
run.
coming.
Yeah. So that's another thing that people will hear
That's
is the clapping breasts.
amazing. Like that, like if you're gonna be a monster eternalized forever, right? Like that's how you want to know I'm coming. You know what I mean?
Right? Honestly, I kind of love it.
Me too. Like that's I mean, and it's so like I feel like her femininity encapsulates every bit of her, right? Like and for better or for worse. Cuz I feel like you said right like she's talked about as like this woman who sleeps around and like doesn't want to listen to any men, right? And do what she wants or maybe in some iterations right she doesn't want to be a mother,
Right.
right? Which I feel
And
like
that's
in a
like that's
lot
what
of
you're supposed to want as a woman. You're supposed to be, do what your man says, respect your man, and be a good mom. And she's literally the opposite of this. And then she's turned into this horrible, disgusting thing as a punishment because she's not doing what she's supposed to do as a woman.
oh, I mean, and it just I feel like it parallels or like mirrors so much of a lot of machismo culture,
Oh
right? Or
yeah,
marianismo culture of like, a woman's place. Like this is
yeah,
what she should be doing. You should be happy being a mother. You should be happy being a housewife or whatever. And you cannot by any means do anything wrong, fall out of line, right? Like you got to follow that straight
yeah.
road. And I think that's kind of amazing to see. And I don't mean this in a disrespectful way. A messy person, a
No, yeah,
human person, right? Like that's what we are. Like that's who we should be. And for her to have so much power in all of these different versions and legends
yeah,
and oral histories is pretty badass. Like that's really cool,
yeah.
you know? Oh my gosh. Okay. So I didn't know. I know I have so many thoughts. So I didn't know Tlaloc was also in some versions included
In
in
all
this
this.
world.
Yeah.
Yes, which is so fascinating. The rain, the water, that idea. I mean, I feel like that I don't know. I feel like that has a lot to say because I feel like in a lot of Nahuatl, like legends and mythology and things of that nature, there are also a lot of tellings of like women that cry or women that wail.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel like the water and Tlaloc being of water, I feel like that has some sort of connection to her character too. This idea of crying and wailing. But I don't know. What do you think?
There's
Maybe.
actually another version. Let me see if I can. Yes,
Yes.
here it is. Okay. So there's this other page Carmen and I absolutely love and follow. It's called Dichos de un Bicho. He is from El Salvador, or I don't remember if he's from El Salvador or just Salvadoran American, one of the two, but ties to El
Okay.
Salvador. And he
Yeah.
wrote this article called "What La Siguanaba Means to Me," and it's such a beautiful interpretation
Oh my
of
god.
this story. So I'm just gonna read what they wrote because it's so
Please.
much better than what I could even like. What's it
No,
called?
no, you're describing it beautifully.
But this is better. So I'm just gonna, yeah, this is like word from word, but I'll send you the link so you can like put it so people
Yes,
can read it for themselves. So
definitely.
they wrote, there are many variations to the story of La Siguanaba, and while in the present day it is treated as a folk tale to scare children or serve as a crone hag
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
archetype,
yeah. Yeah.
which is what we were talking about in the beginning, that trope. It's like that
Exactly.
same one that La Llorona and all these women in white fall under. So
Yeah.
at its core, it is a misogynist allegory not only about how women are never to be trusted, but also how women exerting their sexual agency is a monstrosity.
Mhm.
Likewise, if men are drunkards or cheaters, the appearance of La Segunaba is a cultural moral regulator, not only for the improper behavior of the men, but also a condemnation of their partners at home for their failure as women. There is an
Mm.
alternative perspective, however, when told to me by my mother as a child in the 1980s, as it was told to her back in the 1930s when she was a child. La Siwanaba was an ancestor, a spirit tied to the rivers, and that she was once an indigenous woman wronged by the vileness of men, and so her role was to protect women and punish the men who wronged them. But as is the tendency with centuries worth of Christian-based social morality, what otherwise what was otherwise a powerful figure of feminine spirituality was monstrified into a misogynist caricature.
Mm.
And let's see, what else did he write? There is a book called Cuentos de Barro. It's an old book, and she is in that book classified as un espíritu del río, a river spirit.
Okay, yeah.
And so yeah, that there is depictions of her as this what she was in the
Mm.
past. And when I found that, I was like, "Ugh, I love her even more now."
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay, first of all, freaking beautiful. That's incredible. I'm going to read that again after we finish our conversation today because I mean, that's how I got started into all of this stuff, right? Was La Llorona was the spark for me specifically, and learning about the different versions of her and who she is depending on who tells her story, right? She's different for everybody. And I really, really love that he said, right, like she women in general in this story are at fault,
And
no matter
even
what
when the
way.
men, it's their fault the men are out cheating because that means they're not good enough. It's their fault the
Exactly.
women because they can't keep their man at home. So at the end of the day, it's their fault anyway. Everything.
Everything, like they are the real monsters, right? Like
Yes.
in this
Yes.
story it's not necessarily the horse, face or the killing even, right?
Yes.
It's the
And then
fact that
like her taking the appearance of your mom to lure you out. Like it still falls under that women cannot be trusted. Even
no,
if it's someone
not
you
at all.
love, like they can't be trusted.
It's her fault. It is
Yeah.
always her fault. And I, the also thinking back to how he mentioned, right, it's indigenous potential, indigenous background and history, is also so traumatizing and so terribly sad, right? Because you can only imagine in your mind, like with Spanish colonialization and who knows what else, right? It just makes you think so much about how the blame has always
Yes.
been
Yes.
right
And
on
there's
on
there's so
women.
much to it too because even today in El Salvador,
Yeah.
there's a group of women and indigenous men, but not just women, but there's a group of
Yeah.
people called the water protectors who are trying to protect the water from being mined. Like they just repealed this law about not mining. The waters were protected because like in Central America,
Yeah.
the water is going away. It's like there's not enough water for the people that are there now, and they're
Right.
trying to mine gold that was discovered, and it's like it was protected, now it's not. And these indigenous women and men are at the forefront of that fight, trying to protect
Mm.
the water, and that's their name, the water protectors. And they're being targeted by the current administration, being put in prisons and killed for protecting the water. And just knowing that she was a spirit of the water, like there's so much there.
Much. There's so much there. Like, I mean, it's so God, that's my favorite part about like Nahuatl mythology and their characters and their monsters and their beings is that they are parallel, they are synonymous with the earth and with elements and with food and with plants and with like what have you. And I think it is so powerful that water is associated with her specifically
Right.
because I mean there's so many people strip it, right? Like people steal it. It goes away when pollutants happen, and it goes away with the environment when you don't treat it right.
And like
Um,
it's life, like water is life, you cannot have life without it.
at
Like
all, you cannot exist, right? Like we cannot exist without water. And again, it's almost that idea of pressure on women, of
yeah.
course, right, to sustain life, to keep it going. Like, and if it doesn't, it's your fault.
Yeah. And then you tie into all of this that part of the curse is because she wasn't caring for the life she brought into the world, like the Cipitio, the kid, she
Right.
was like not taking care of him, not feeding him. So I don't know. There's just layers, layers.
So many layers. And water in a lot of like our favorite stories, right? Like when somebody it rains on them, right? Or they walk through water or they walk through a river, there's an ocean, or they fall in the ocean, whatever, fall into a pool. That's supposed to symbolize this idea of being almost baptized, right? Like there will be a change, something different is to come from this moment. And I think it's really interesting that she is constantly flowing and changing and evolving, especially now. I feel like a lot of feminists, a lot of women, right, love and like associate with her because she is seen as such a
Yeah.
powerful
There's
being
like
for
this
defending
resurgence
herself.
of claiming back, not even just La Siguanaba, like in El Salvador, but
Yes.
La Llorona in Mexico. Even during the big like Chicanismo boom of like the 1960s, La Llorona was a
Yes.
figure that was like used, as this symbol. But also you go a little further than that, and the famous, like, I don't like using this name for her, but La Malinche, right?
Oh my gosh.
And
Yes.
there's also
Yes.
another like layer to this because some people, there's versions of the legend where La Llorona is La Malinche. So
Mm-hmm.
just fascinating. Like,
It is.
yeah.
It is. Like, I mean, like you said, right? It's part of our being. Like in the womb, I feel like we are born into such generational trauma, into such deep, deep, terrifying history in our blood. And I think these narratives and these stories and these central figures, right, that we grow up with, they teach us so much about our culture, about our society, but also I think the strength that we could have, that we do have, right, the ability to take control and have ownership. I don't know, like it's interesting to think about like us standing on the shoulders of these monsters, of these
Yes.
ghosts, of these
Yes.
spirits, of these legends. Like that's pretty awesome, I think, you know?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. And then, speaking about the sun, tu la sipitio. So, okay, so you said something that I really want to talk about too, is he's seen as a trickster figure, right? Love tricksters. So fascinating, so interesting. I don't know, they always keep you on your toes, right? They're
You
full of
never know what they're
mischief.
gonna do.
Never. And speaking of never know what they're gonna do, when you said that he, in some versions, has his feet backwards, um, that also reminded me of, I know in the Dominican Republic, right? Like another version of La Siguanaba and La Llorona is La Siguapa, right? Who very
Oh, yes.
similarly,
Like a very
yes,
similar name. It's another
yes,
woman. Although La Ciguapa, there's some stories where they were made up by this guy. And I forget the guy's name. He was like someone Spanish that was visiting
yes.
um the Dominican Republic, but they're like a race of these creatures that have their feet backwards. They're
Mhm.
only women. They live in,
Mhm.
the jungles, and they lure men away. And there's
Yes.
a very fun Netflix short. It's like 15 minutes. I
Okay.
found the creator on TikTok. I follow her, and I don't know if she follows me back, maybe. But
I hope
the
so.
movie's literally just called La Ciguapa, and it's so short, and it's so interesting just seeing like her bringing this legend to life. It's very fun, and it's
Yes.
worth a watch. Yeah,
Oh, I love it.
it's a fun movie. Yeah,
But you bring up a very interesting point too about kind of colonialism and like how they view indigenous individuals and how they view indigenous women and women that are not like them, right? And they create this almost monstrous description, right, of who they are, this otherization,
like
right? Of
monstrous but exotic at the same time, and always
Mhm.
always luring men away.
Always sexualized, right? Like there
Yes,
is always some version of sexualization and that they
always.
have no control over
Yeah,
at
like,
all.
oh
Like,
no, but she lured me away. What was I supposed to do? She was sitting there naked on a rock. Like, I couldn't control myself. Like,
yeah,
she was too
freaking
powerful.
ridiculous. Freaking crazy, right? But again, always the woman's fault, totally
Yes,
sure.
yes.
Okay, whatever, you know? And I've always been so mystified. I really do love the idea of the feet backwards. I love the
Yeah,
idea, like you
yeah.
said, not knowing were you coming or were you going?
Right, and
Like,
that's the whole reason the feet are turned backwards. Yeah, he's like a
mhm.
little duende, but also in what is it? I think Trinidad and Tobago, they have their own story of like these little children that are, if you look at drawings of them and CPTO, they look the same. It's like these little kids, like they look like, I don't know, the height of like a 4 year old,
Oh my
and
god.
they've got big bellies. Their feet are turned backwards. I remember. Oh, that's also called. It's the spelling is similar to duende, but it's like Douen. It's like duen, something like that. But
Oh,
it's
okay.
interesting that it also starts with like the word that leads into duende, because like even El
Yes.
Cepillo is a very duende like figure. He's got this pointy
Mhm.
hat. He, is a little trickster, and duendes are too. So they're all like very related. It's strange and fascinating, really.
Yeah. Like you said, right? Like all of these characters, all of these beings, right? They stand on their own. But there is that relation, I think, across cultures, especially for Latin America, for Central
Yeah.
America, right? There is that, unfortunately, right, line of either generational trauma, of abuse, of machismo kind of attitudes, of betrayal, right? Like, which I think is very powerful and very fascinating. And like you said, that La Cipitio was cursed, even
Hmm.
though didn't necessarily do anything right, wrong, just kind
Right.
of existed.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that says a lot too about this concept of generational trauma,
Oh
right?
my
This
God,
idea
doesn't
of
it?
curse.
Like literally, he is like the, I don't know, in a story version, he's like the personification of generational trauma. Like your mom did wrong, and now you're being punished for it too. But also, he
Exactly.
kind of gets to have fun. But is he having fun? I don't know.
Yeah, and he's, again, like following that line of betrayal and being terrible to women and
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
like in some versions,
Yeah,
which
like
really
there's
sad.
El Cepillo is there to, like, if he finds a girl he likes, he will not leave her alone. Then the girl can't even like do anything in peace because he's there, and he'll repeat like, "Me quieres? Me quieres? Do you like me? Do you like me? Do you like me?" Like that's the version our
Oh,
dad told us, that he would just sit there and be like, "Do you like me? Do you like me?" Can you imagine that? And then like the funny part is, to make him go away, you're supposed to like you're supposed to sit in a because back then the bathrooms were outside. It was like a little
yeah,
outhouse, so
absolutely.
you're supposed
Yeah.
to go outside and eat like I don't know, I don't remember the meal, but you're supposed to eat inside that outhouse, and then he's so
Interesting.
disgusted he runs away. And it's like, it's another like, oh, a woman, no one's supposed to do that, and it's disgusting anyway, but a woman
Right.
or girl doing that is even more disgusting, and that's why he finally leaves and leaves you alone.
That's ridiculous. Again, it's our fault, right?
Yeah.
Like we're supposed to fix it. We're supposed to change it. Like that's wild and so creepy.
Yeah.
For not even for spooky ghost reasons, right? Just like, ew, like a
Yeah.
man, like you're
Hmm.
being gross. And I don't
Yeah.
like that. Like that's disgusting,
Hmm.
Ugh. That's so weird. And you said he eats, right, like the ashes, like the wood
Uh-huh. Yeah.
ashes. Why do you think that is?
It
I mean,
said
it's gross.
he eats those because La Siguanaba, or when she was Sibawet, didn't take care of him, and he would just find whatever to eat. And so he used to get like full on bananas that he could find, like because there was banana trees everywhere.
Yeah, yeah,
They're
yeah.
less now because of colonization, but
Yeah,
there was
yeah.
a lot of banana trees back then. They're still there, but they're not as wild as they used to be. So he used to survive on sneaking into people's houses and eating ashes or bananas.
Oh
So,
my
and that's why
gosh.
his little belly is distended when you look at drawings of him, and that's why he still does it in the afterlife, like because he
That's
loves
always what he's
ashes.
gonna do. Yeah, women and food.
Yeah, right,
I guess. Yeah, yeah. And truthfully, it is quite sad that the curse for them involves never seeing each other again.
right, yeah,
Um, like that's to be cursed to wander the earth for the rest of eternity is sad in of itself, but it's also in signifying that like you will be alone. Like there
yeah.
will never be
You don't
any.
deserve to find your child again because you're being punished more
Yeah, and that's heartbreaking. Like that's really really sad. Really sad no matter what, you
for
know.
both of them.
Yes. Yes, for both of them. They never it's almost in this sense of like they're in this vicious cycle of like they will
Hmm.
never learn. Like that's
Yeah,
just how it works, you
yeah.
know? Oh my gosh. Well, okay, so who did you learn of La Siguanaba from? Christina,
I
like you remember?
Yeah, I had always heard my dad and uncle mention these names, but I didn't know the stories because they were never the kind to like just tell us about El Salvador. And that's probably another thing that has to do with like the trauma of like the civil war
Mm.
they lived through. They
Oh
don't
my
tell us
god,
anything
yeah.
about it ever. We had
Yeah.
to like learn bits and pieces just randomly throughout the years, like remember what he said about, El Salvador. But then when I started uh wanting to start Espooky Tales, I was like, let me just search up like legends of places I don't know. And that's
Yeah.
how I came across like the full story and then like finding other people's accounts. But yeah, I'm like, it was more like wanting, to learn more about these names I heard and I just didn't know what they were. So
Yes.
that's what it like I barely learned about her when what was it 2020 2021, I forget when I
Yes.
started Espooky Tales,
Yes.
but that's when I learned the full story and I just knew her name. And like other stories like El Cadejo, the Cipitillo, same thing, but I didn't fully know the stories until like starting the podcast.
That's kind of incredible. I feel like again, I relate to you on so many fronts. Of course in our parents or dads, in their separate ways, but I feel like there's a lot of emotionality and specifics about ourselves that I mean are at least I can speak for myself, right? Like my dad is a very stoic individual and
Oh
doesn't,
yeah, same.
want to, doesn't
Yeah,
will not show tears, will not show any sort of crack in their
yeah,
surface, right? Mental health wasn't really a thing,
right.
um, for the longest time. And just like you, right, there was a lot about, Mexico that I really wanted to learn about that my dad was like, I don't, feel comfortable talking about it. And through legend telling, right, and through exploring monsters and things, I feel like I'm learning more about my dad. Um, and
It's
in,
weird. It's
you know,
weird and like fascinating, but also like, damn, why don't you just tell me these stories?
right. Like I want to hear you
Yeah,
telling me all of this stuff. Like I want to hear how you feel about it. Um, which is interesting and so I love so much that that is how you explored her and how you found her and how you continue to find her through your research and through your show and
yeah.
meeting people and talking about her. You know what I mean? Oh my gosh, it's complicated. I feel like
Oh yeah,
I don't know, like Latine dads in
yeah,
general. I feel like people that have
yeah.
grown up.
No, and then you add in like for my dad and even my uncle,
Yeah,
there's this like to go through when you leave El Salvador, you have to go through Mexico and Guatemala, right? In
yeah, yeah,
Guatemala, it's not a problem. You can go through there and you fit in right away because Guatemala, in many ways, the accent is very similar to Salvador. But you get to
yeah,
Mexico, and if you speak, your accent will give you away so fast. And
yeah,
like, not to get too political, but
yeah,
people
yeah.
are like, the wall, Mexico and the wall, right? Like, we're not going to build a
Mm,
wall, but like, they really don't need to build a wall because they are the wall for Central Americans trying to get to the US. right?
Tea.
Mexico
Yeah.
is a wall, and the minute you're found to have not be from Mexico, but
Mhm.
and not white, right? Because you can be in Mexico and speak English and you're fine.
Yeah, totally.
But
Yeah, you really are. Yeah.
if you're coming from Central America right away, you're deported so fast, or you're put into a facility where you're mistreated. Um,
Mhm.
and so you have to hide your accent as best as you can. And these accents, the more Salvadoran you sound, the more rural you get, right? So then you add in this
Mhm.
classist layer of like, I don't want to sound ghetto because they're the ones that sound ghetto.
Mhm.
So, and my dad, the accent will slip out when he's speaking with other Salvadorans.
Of
But
course.
to get through Mexico and not be found, they had to practice. They would watch Mexican TV to practice the accent and lose the Salvadoran accent. And it was like this prideful thing to not sound Salvadoran.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
growing up, you understand why he did it, of course, because I would even hear my own Mexican family like using
Yeah.
slur words for Salvadorians. And I'm
There's a
sitting
lot of
like, oh my
internalized
God, I'm right
racism.
here.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
why?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even, those caravans that were coming through, they haven't stopped, but I think like 4 years ago, they were worse. And so the Mexican news were like, there was this propaganda, horrible propaganda against Central Americans on the caravans. And I would hear
Yeah.
my aunts like, oh, they're complaining about eating this and this and this. And it's whatever. But the point is,
Yeah.
you have to
Yeah.
hide the Salvadoranness to get through Mexico. And then you get here, and even like, depending where you end up, like California, it is majority Mexican, especially like, we grew up in Oakland, and
Right.
there was more Mexicans than anything else. And then, my dad met my mom, and he was like so proud to assimilate into this Mexican family and like not have that Salvadoran
Interesting.
accent and just like eat whatever she ate. And like
Mhm.
beans, and again, it's funny because beans was a big thing with the caravan. I don't know if you remember those news where they were like, they're complaining about the beans. And that was like the one thing my dad asked my mom to keep making the
Oh
Central
my
American way,
god.
beans. They're just dying
Yes.
there. But
Yes.
it was so not hearing, his accent, not hearing a lot about El Salvador, it was also like the trauma, but also hiding it. Like it was like not
It was
this
a
thing to be
choice.
proud of. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I forgot why I even started this point, but yes.
Yeah. No. Yes. Yes. What talking about like hiding your, for example, emotionality or history or where you
Yes. Oh
came
my
from.
God. That's where it came
Yeah.
from. Yeah. So on top of that, it was like already not showing emotion, already not talking about these stories, but then you add in this layer of like not even wanting to be Salvadoran or having to hide being Salvadoran more because
Mhm.
you're talked down and you have to like when you're all these things. But then yeah, so then we don't get
Yeah.
to hear the stories from
Oh
him. Like we had to learn it elsewhere.
God, that breaks my heart so much. And I mean, I'm so glad that you're talking about it because yes, you're absolutely right. Like there is so much internalized racism. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy, right? Like in oof, a lot of parts of Mexico.
Yeah.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
I love like hearing like him and my uncle will start talking like about like back then, and they'll both slip slowly into their Salvadoran accents, and
I
just hearing
you can
it,
hear
if like
it.
I don't, there's some people that talk too fast. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what they're saying. But hearing them, I'm like, it's beautiful because it's like they're, I don't know, almost like falling back into themselves after trying to like hide it, or it's like
Yeah.
very nice to hear.
It's natural, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what it should be.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That breaks my heart just because I was speaking to specifically a refugee from I believe Venezuela here in Bowling Green, because we have an international center here, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean it's a beautiful place. It's an incredible place. People from everywhere. And I forgot what we were talking about, but talking about cultural customs and folk and traditional arts and things that she remembers from Venezuela, and if she had brought any of that here, and she's like, Camille, like when you're a political refugee or a refugee of any kind, like you're not thinking about the happiness to bring over here. You're not thinking about these arts. You're not thinking about the things that make you happy. Like you're just bringing yourself and some
Yeah.
clothes
Ugh.
and your bed or whatever, right? Like in that metaphorical way.
Yeah.
And that is so heartbreaking on so many fronts that like I feel like a lot of immigrants um are constantly in this state of survival mode, right?
Yeah.
Constantly in this state of I have to assimilate or I have to hide a certain part of myself or all of myself.
Yeah.
Like I can't even think about, right? Like for example, telling my daughters and my son about
Yes.
La Siguanaba. Like that is not something
Right.
that crosses my mind,
Yeah.
you know? Ugh, it
Ugh.
breaks me. It freaking I hate it. I hate it so much. And like I think though, like you and your sister, right? You're paving these pathways in which not only you both can learn about this integral part of your lives, but other people can too, and start asking maybe their parents, right, about
Yeah.
these questions, about these monsters, about these histories, about these legends, right? And just to see if they would be willing to share any part of
Yes.
their
Yeah.
background, you
That's
know?
honestly what I think brings me like even more joy. And I'm like, hearing or getting messages from people that are like, I feel like I'm learning so much that I didn't know about my own culture. And I'm like,
Mm.
please tell me more. I love hearing it.
Yes,
But
yes.
it's like it's very nice because in a way we brought it to ourselves because again we didn't know a lot of stories about El Salvador, and now I'm
Yeah.
like I feel like an expert in in
Yes,
folklore
literally.
in El
Yes, you
Salvador
are.
that I didn't know about before, and just being able to share those stories for not just El Salvador but so many places, it's awesome. It really is
So awesome. And you are the spark, both of you, that are like starting these conversations in families across the country, across the world, right? Like you
crazy.
all are starting that. That's so incredible, Christina. Like that's
I
so
know.
exciting, right? And I'm curious, what does like your family or your parents, what do they say about your show?
Oh, they love it. They were like, "Oh, we have this
Oh,
other story that we haven't told." Or my dad was like, "Well, did you know about this place?" And now he's like bringing us other
oh
stories
my
like, "Oh,
God.
well, they talk about this here." And then my uncle would be like, "Yeah, this happened." Like everyone's like sharing more stories with us. And so that's, I don't know, it's a beautiful thing that that wasn't there before because he wasn't just like he told us his own like paranormal experiences, but he wasn't like, "Oh, they also talk about so and so here," or in this place they saw el cadejo or blah blah blah. And so it's been very fun because then it gets to open up this new like, I don't know, thing that wasn't there before. So yeah,
Mm.
and it's nice that at first they were like, why are you even doing this? And now they're like, no, this is cool. So
Yeah, it's kind of everything. It's
yeah.
literally everything. And I feel like what it sounds like is you're also bringing out that childlike wonder for your uncle and for your father, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
that maybe they didn't get to really fully fall into, right, for a really long
Yes.
period of
Yeah.
time. Oh, that makes me wanna cry. Like, that's just so beautiful in so many ways and just so important. Like, that's why, ugh, I get so angry when people write off, horror or scary stories or whatever as, like, childlike. Like, they use that as a derogatory term or, like, not important or not blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So stupid. Like, for so many underserved communities, right? Like, this is what we have. Like, this is how
Yeah.
we communicate. This is how we learn about ourselves. And I think it's amazing that La Siguanaba gave you that,
It's
I don't know,
crazy.
extended arm,
Yeah.
you know, or backwards foot, however you want
Backwards foot. Good one.
however you want to, put it. Like, that's really special. That's so special. Okay. Well, Christina, why do you think specifically, right, it is La Siguanaba that has stayed by your side for so long? Why do you think she was the one that opened your eyes and opened your mind to really wanting to explore these Latine folk tales or legends further? Why has she made such an impact on your life?
Oh man, I think because again, tying back into like our dad not telling us anything about El Salvador, I already knew about so many stories about Mexico, so many, especially
Yeah.
because my family's from Guadalajara. And then there's like this haunted cemetery. There's so many stories in that cemetery alone. There's this
Oh,
famous haunted hospital. And we heard all these stories. And my mom, everyone on our Mexican side of the family loved telling us these stories. Like La Llorona, again, these stories we heard from such a young age. And there's this other side of us that we didn't hear about. And that's why like I literally La Siguanaba was like, this is episode 1. And it
oh,
is. It's episode 1, and then El
right.
Cipitillo is episode 2, and then El Cadejo, which is another famous Salvadoran legend, is episode 3. I was like,
Yeah, yeah,
because I don't know these stories. This is literally why I wanted to like talk about legends, to like
yeah.
share these stories I didn't know either, and learn about where my dad is from.
Mm,
And I don't, for one, she's a woman, and I love a woman rights and wrongs, right? Like
yes,
I'm always going to be
always,
on her side. And
definitely.
so I don't know, I feel like she was the learning that she even existed, because again, I didn't know about her. She was like the inspiration to just keep doing this and keep looking like into all these stories, and now I know about so many stories in so many different places, and it was like she started it. She was the one, because like La Llorona, I love her too. She has her place in my life
Of
too, but La
course. Yeah.
Siguanaba is just this other side that I didn't know existed, and but they're both so similar and so different, and they're
Sure.
I love them both. But yeah, La Siguanaba, I think, because she is a Salvadoran story, and that, yeah, like I made her episode one, and then I'm like, let me look at all these other stories, and like there's so much of Central America in those first episodes, because I'm just like, we didn't know
Ah,
these stories.
yes. And now we're learning them, all of us together,
Yeah.
like in that
And then every
moment.
once in a while I'm finding someone that there was an encounter. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't hear this one. Let me
Oh,
it's so fun.
so much fun. And you get to talk about each other and your life. Like you can't talk about these specific cultural legends without getting into who you are, like as a person. Like you learn about families, you learn about customs, you learn about so many beautiful things just by opening that door with
Yes.
her, you
Yes.
know?
It started with her.
Start with her. She was the like Aiden. Aiden is our La Siguanapa. Technically, like Suso's podcast is what
Oh, he
started,
is. Literally
so
is, and I tell him all the time, and I'm like, you were literally the reason Espooky Tales exists. Like I
yeah,
finished Susto and he was on a break for so long.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And now he's back and
And
better than
he's
ever.
back, and I hear him in my ear holes every week.
So incredible. It's so incredible. Also, I'm realizing right now, I got so freaking excited to talk to you and we just got into it that I never asked you a very important question, which was what would you define a monster as?
Oh,
Like, yeah, I got so excited. I was
I
like, let's go
know,
into
right?
it. So, in your eyes, what do you think a monster is?
Um,
Exactly.
I feel like something we don't understand and maybe scares us a little bit is a
Yeah.
monster. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. That, like, I want to learn more almost
Yeah.
because I don't really know what you are.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, do you feel like La Siguanaba falls under that? Do you believe that she is a monster?
Oh yeah, I think so. A good monster to me, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Why?
she scares. She's meant to scare us. That's the whole her whole purpose. But also, even in the version where she is a protector of women and a water spirit, and there's no cheating or no betraying
Yeah.
her son, right? In that version alone, she's also protecting women and putting the fear of La Siguanaba into men. So, in
Yes.
any way, she's feared, and she should be.
Yeah, in a badass way. In a
Yes,
very
yes,
badass way.
feared and
Yeah.
respected. Like I respect her.
Yes. Yes, definitely, definitely. Like total respect in all aspects of her. Yeah. Well, why do you think that either reading stories about monsters or talking about monsters, exploring monsters, why do you think it's so important to keep talking about monsters specifically?
I feel like it like we were saying earlier, it allows you to see different like either history or cultures. You're talking about like old, legends and stories of monsters. You get to see like why does this thing exist? What was the purpose of it? And then that lets you look deeper into like what was going on in the world at the time that this legend came to exist, and why is it being passed down. And it's fascinating to see, because then when you look at these stories and you look at the moral behind them, you can see what is important to this culture, and why um
Yeah.
should it be important, have we moved on from this. So it's almost always comes down to either like children need to listen to their parents, girls need to behave like girls,
Right.
and so you get to tie it into like, oh yeah, that is this is definitely Mexican culture, or this is definitely Latin
Yeah.
American culture. But not only that alone, like every story has like, what it came from. Like even there's like these legends of these death carts that, people would go
Mm.
inside their house, and nobody would go out after a certain time because this cart of death would pass by. Like they all have different names, but they exist in Mexico, El Salvador,
Yeah.
Nicaragua, Honduras, Colombia. Every place has their own version of it, and they're either tied to like the colonization of the Spanish, or like cholera outbreaks. Like, and it's crazy because then I wonder like, okay, well, what is gonna come out? What legend is gonna be told generations from now, if the world still exists, if we haven't like burned it to the ground as a
Right.
race,
Of course.
what is
Yeah.
going to be
Of
said
course.
about COVID? Because this legend, like La Carreta en Agua, La Carreta de la Muerte, these came from
Yeah.
the cholera outbreak. So like, what
Exactly.
is going to be said later if people are still around? So it just, I feel like being like liking horror, looking into these legends, it just lets you maintain like this curiosity about the world where you're just
Mhm.
learning and learning and learning, and like it's fun and fascinating, and there's so much, I don't know, there's so much to it.
So much.
I
It's
could
so
talk
much.
forever about it, but
Oh, I know. Which is why it's so fun. Like,
right.
absolutely. Absolutely. I love that you use the word curiosity. Um it makes you feel like you have to keep learning. Like there's so much that you can learn about. And it's such a beautiful like doorway to your history. And like you said, monsters are almost always reflections, right, of society's fears or whatever's happening in that generation, in that decade, or whatever. But it also helps you learn about humanity, right? It helps you learn about yourself, about who you are as a person, and um, again, how messy we can all be in a
Yeah.
beautiful way, though, right? Like
Yes.
in a
Yes.
very human way. So I totally agree with you there. Definitely, yeah, yeah. Well, last question. Unfortunately, we are here. But I'm curious, Christina. Say you're chilling. It's a Thursday evening. You're chilling in Washington, having, I don't know, relaxing, watching TV, something like that. And for whatever reason, La Siguanaba makes herself known to you. And however way you want to see it, however she looks, it's totally your choice. But she appears to you. What would you do in that situation? What would you say? Would you say anything? How would you react?
Okay, I love her, but I don't want to be a victim of her. So there's actually a thing you can say to make her go away. You say, I don't want to get it wrong. I have it written down here in
I
my
love this.
little Siguanaba
Your notes, your
document.
Siguanaba notes.
Yes. Something Maria. Hold on. It's in here. I know it is.
Oh, I love this.
Oh my God. Is it in some other notes? It should be in this one. Oh, there it is. No te vas a ir, María, pata de gallina. You say that 3 times and you make her go away. In English, you're not leaving crabgrass, Maria. You say that 3 times. And I don't know, she doesn't like it. And so, like, as much as I love her, I also fear her and respect her. And I don't want to go crazy because I see her horse face version. So I would
Yeah.
immediately be like, no te vas a ir, Maria, whatever. What
Yeah,
is it? I already forgot. Something, or pata de gallina. Yeah.
that is so interesting. I wonder why that is the saying. That is so
I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me.
me
And I've
either.
never been able to find out why you're supposed to say this. Sometimes another way, because back then everyone carried machetes, and it's still a thing where you're like everyone has a crazy Salvadoran uncle that is waving around his machete at every like family party, and we
Totally.
did have one. It's true. And I don't have a machete now, but supposedly if you bite your machete, like you lay it this way and you bite it like that,
Yeah,
she goes away. So that's another way to make her go away. And then another one is if you have like those like religious like necklaces, like a medalla.
sure,
If you have
yeah.
one and you like bite it, she goes away. So I would do one
Interesting.
of those 3 things. So
You would
because
be
I'm not
like,
trying to go crazy.
and I don't blame you, right?
Yeah,
Like
I'm like
she's
I love you, but from afar, please.
exactly like you could be like, we could do a virtual interview, but I
Yes.
don't I don't wanna we're not gonna be in the same room,
No. No.
please. Thank you so much. I can admire you from afar,
Yes.
respectfully.
Yes.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Christina. Well, thank you so much. So freaking much for being on the show. Like,
Yes, I love it. I'm like, oh, new episode. Let me listen
oh,
now. Well, watch.
yeah, right, right.
Yes.
But
Yes.
it's such an honor. Like literally you both are so iconic. You have no idea just how many like paths you've paved for people like me, like just for people, Latine creators, individuals in the spooky world, and in general. Like you all have opened so many doors,
Oh
and like
gosh.
you give us such a confidence and such a, I don't know, you show us that it's possible. And so I'm just so thankful
That's
to
so
geek
funny
out
because
with
that's
you.
literally how I feel about Aiden.
Oh, it's like a pyramid.
Right? It
He's
all started
our
with Aiden, the pyramid of susto.
He would love that. I feel like he would really love if we told him that.
Yes. Yeah.
Definitely. Shout out to Aiden.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
And literally anytime you guys want to come back and talk about more anything Salvadorian folklore or any other Latine monsters that we haven't talked about yet, like please, we would
Yes.
love to
Okay.
freaking have
I'll
you.
have to pencil out a time when Carmen can come, where I tell her ahead of time instead of very last minute, and then she can't leave work.
Okay. Literally, I'm telling you, it's so busy. She is doing her bad, what am I thinking? Like, she is a bad girl, bad adult woman. She's killing it,
Yes.
is what I mean to
Yes.
say. She's doing her adult thing, and that's awesome. Good for her.
Right.
But yes, selfishly, I would love to have you both back whenever possible. It would be so much fun to chat with you again. Really.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
This episode of Floaties for Krakens was written and recorded by me, Camille Maria Costa. A monstrous thank you to Cristina Lumague for such a fun interview. A big thank you to Michael Kosman for producing a stellar episode, and a huge thank you to Natalie Hedberg for designing such a phenomenal logo. And music for the show is also written and produced by me, with a special appearance by my tata, Toby Acosta. Thank you all so much for tuning into today's show. It truly means everything. If you have questions or curiosities about the research or media referenced in today's episode, everything will hopefully be in the description box. And you can find us on our website and our socials, links in the description as well. Anyway, thanks again for being here, everyone. And just a reminder, it's okay to be afraid of the monster, but it's also okay to love the heck out of it too. Keep being monstrous and keep shining bright.